Distinguished trainers, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the online training course on principles and applications of integrated pest and disease management organized by the Non-Aligned Movement Center for South-South Technical Cooperation Center and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia in cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture of the Republic of Indonesia. Today is the training second day. As you may know, we will listen to presentations by the ICAT Ketindan experts and having discussions. I hope you will stay with us in the following few hours. First of all, before we start the core training activity, I would like to invite the ICAT team to give an overview. You've got the floor, ma'am. Thank you.
Good morning, Mrs. Niken and all participants. Briefly, I will inform that there are 31 participants that already have taken pre-test. Okay, before we start, the first material of our subject today about ecologically based integrated pest management, which will be delivered by Mrs. Lutfi Triandriani. Let's watch video about agriculture and Indonesia. Please enjoy.
In the deep blue sky, there is a country, not a country on the clouds, which is filled with tales of good and goodies. There is a land of endless spectacular wonders, with a millions timeless treasure, amazingly beautiful land, exotic and charming, beloved homeland as the emerald of the equator, a country surrounded by fertile valley and canyon. The people live in harmony and peacefully. Prosperous country, a gift from God. Indonesia, unity in diversity. Indonesia is a big agrarian country. It has a rich biodiversity, so that agriculture sector becomes a potential contributor to national income. Various innovations continue to be explored and developed, not only for quantity, not only for quality, but also for the welfare of society. In fact, maintaining sustainable agriculture is not easy. Climate change, pests, and disease is a challenge that always comes. But agriculture must survive. IPDM, agro-ecosystem management, healthy soil management, pest and disease management is a breakthrough that needs to be done for sustainable agriculture. Agriculture that's not just for the present, but agriculture is for better life in the future.
Thank you for your attention. Hopefully, by watching the video, the participant will get an overview of our country, Indonesia, especially in agriculture sector. Okay, now we will move to the first material for today. Please welcome Mrs. Lutfi Triandriani. Time is yours now.
Okay, participants, as you may have heard from Mrs. Juni from the LMS team, that we will listen to the presentation from Mrs. Lutfitri Andriani. And of course, before we are moving to the next agenda, I would like to thank Mrs. Juni for the video and what Indonesia is doing for agriculture's development and sustainability is extremely fantastic, and we hope that the strong links between Indonesia and the Caribbean and Latin American countries can be further strengthened by agriculture. So participants, as you will see on the screen, Mrs. Lutfitri Andriani will present, and I would like to read her brief biodata before she begins her presentation. Mrs. Lutfitri Andriani has 11 years of experience in providing training of sustainable agriculture, plant disease, plant pathology, integrated pest and disease management, and agro-ecosystem. She holds a master's degree in plant sciences. She is now teaching at the Indonesian Centre for Agricultural Training of Ketindan under the auspice of the Ministry of Agriculture of the Republic of Indonesia. She published scientific journals and books on ecological control of plant pest organisms and usage of plant growth promoting bacteria. During this session, she presents the ecologically based integrated pest management. Without further ado, may I give the floor to Mrs. Lutfi.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to say thank you for coming in our presentation. It's great to see you all. My name is Lutfi Triandriani. I'm grateful for the chance provided at this time, and we pray that we are all under God's protection at all times. Hopefully, the COVID pandemic will be over soon, and we can all be able to meet face-to-face offline eventually. According to the current subject, which is about ecologically based integrated pest management, we have to a goal before we advance on the theme, because if we don't have a goal, we will be swayed and appear to lose our way. We currently have learning objectives in place that include, at the end of this session, the participants should have a better understanding of how to prevent pest and plant disease and plant diseases by agroecosystem ecology as the basic of integrated pest management. The background are the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are at the focus of this issue. There are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institution, and partnership for the goals. And we have to focus on expanding the agricultural sector to achieve 3 of the SDGs, including 1, 2, and 3. As we all know, crop production is difficult. Therefore, we must appropriate the climate, weather, soil type, and plant types to our specific regions. There are dynamic biotic restriction, pests, and plant diseases that can affect the quality and quantity of agricultural production, and even crop failure owing to pests and diseases. Hence, not only abiotic but also biotic factors can be inhibitors for crop production. The definition of integrated pest management, or IPM, means the careful consideration of all available pest management techniques and subsequent integration of appropriate measures that discourage the development of pest population and other intervention to levels that are economically justified and reduce or minimize risk to human health and the environment. IPM emphasizes the growth of a healthy crop with the least possible disruption to agroecosystem and encourages natural pest control mechanism. IPM main strategy is prevention, monitoring and implementation or intervention. And firstly, I would like to explain about the prevention strategy. For long-term solution to the pest and diseases problem could be obtained through improving and managing agroecosystem to prevent the damage from pests and plant diseases. Agroecosystem is defined as community of organisms interacting with their environment to produce agricultural products. And agroecosystem design is the planning of an agroecosystem geographical and temporal layout, as well as its biodiversity and management, while taking into account the interaction between its components and their surroundings. In simple terms, agroecosystems are agricultural farms that are designed to mimic the circumstance of forest biodiversity as nearly as possible. And in preventive activities portion of IPM, this is an example of an agroecosystem landscape is shown below. The image components are this is a land or field, and then plant intercropping, and then flower border or the refuge of refugia, and then pest, and then mycorrhiza or PGBB or trichoderma as beneficial microorganism, and then organic fertilizer, and then nutrient management, and then natural enemy. This is the component of landscape, agroecosystem landscape. And the goals of landscape management is enhance diversity, provision of adequate water amounts and quality, increase ecosystem resistance to disturbance, promotion of regeneration of target plant species, increasing agricultural production in a sustainable manner, stabilizing and protection of natural resources, provision of food and shelter for wildlife, and creation of habitat mosaic. There are sum up as the IPM's ecologically oriented strategic pillars. The pillars of ecological pest management agroecosystem design, which includes above ground and below ground arrangement, is one of the best of ecological pest management. In the below ground, we have soil test and nutrient management, and then addition the compost and beneficial microorganism. And then above ground, we have plant diversity and refugia and beneficial insect or natural enemies. It would be create a health agroecosystem and increase resistance to disturbance from pests and plant diseases. The pillars of ecological pest management first is in above ground. We have plant diversity and natural enemies. In the plant diversity, we have intercropping, flowering plant or refuge or refugia, and then rotation, crop rotation. And then we have beneficial insect, conservation, natural enemies. In the above ground, this is the example of crop diversity in ICAT Ketindan. So in this image are banana plant, maize, rice, tomatoes, and etc. For above ground plant diversity and beneficial insect, the plant diversity is responsible for minimizing the economic damage from insect pests by facilitating the population of existing or naturally occurring beneficial organisms by supplying them with appropriate habitat and alternative food source. This is the example. The pollen and nectar present in the flowering plants are required as alternative food for natural enemies, like this, for normal fecundity and longevity, which are the key element of diversified agroecosystem. The population of natural enemies like predators, parasitoids, and pathogens is diverse and abundant in diverse agroecosystem, where fewer pesticides are used than in monoculture or in fields routinely treated with chemical pesticides. The field margins can be converted into reservoirs of natural enemies by providing habitat which supply pollen, nectar, and other resources. These natural enemies move from field margin into crops and provide biological control. You can attract natural enemies and improve biological pest control by planting polycultures and flowering plants. In order to properly utilize the abilities of natural enemies, the flowering plant have the characteristic of being easy to grow, easy to breed, brightly colored, and long blooming periods. This is the example of refugia. And the beneficial insect, the refuge strip of flowering plant is beneficial to admit the beneficial insect to the field. The example of flowering plant that attract unnatural enemies, for example, caraway, and then coriander, and then dill, fennel, flowering emmy or bishop's flowers, queen anise lace, toothpick emmy, wild parsnip, and then blanket flower, coneflower, coreopsis, cosmos, goldenrod, sunflower, tansy, yarrow. The legumes, for the example, alfalfa, big flower fats, fava bean, hairy fats, sweet clover. And then the brassicaceae, basket of gold alyssum, hoary alyssum, mustard, sweet alyssum, yellow rocket, wild mustard, and other species like buckwheat or cinquefoil. And then the mechanism of the refugia to attract the parasitoid or biological control agent and control the population pest. The parasitoid come to the refugia cause finding the nectar, and then the parasitoid get the volatile compounds from the plants in response to insect. And then volatile compounds are released by plants in response to insect feeding triggered by an interaction of elicitors from the oral secretion of insect herbivores with damaged plant tissue. These volatiles are used by some parasitoid wasps to locate their host. And then the mechanism of the refugia or intercropping to block movement of pests. the refugia or other plant varieties on the field. This is the refugia, and then this is the plant. The difference of the movement of pests and parasitoid. The movement of pests move to there, and then the movement of pests, the reverse of that. So they will be meet, and then the pest will be controlled by the parasitoid. This is the example of parasitoid on the refugia on sunflower. And then before we move to below ground, we have two rotation. Crop rotation is an important tool for the management of insect and mite pests, diseases, nematodes, and weeds. The inclusion of crops that don't support growth and reproduction of the pathogen in rotation reduce the amount of soil-borne inoculum. Crops from the same family should not be planted next to each other on the field. And then we move to the below ground from the pillars of ecological pest management. One of the fundamental pillars of ecological pest management is soil health, which harbors more active and diverse population of the soil organisms that compete, antagonize, and ultimate curb soil-borne pests. The crop protection can be achieved by managing pests through a healthy soil, a rich natural enemy biodiversity obtained by a diversified agroecosystem, soil nutrient, soil organic matter management, and reduced delay of and providing field boundaries, border, and the buffers. The profitable are cost effectiveness, cost and availability of labor, land, equipment, and other production input, and crop prices is the primary criterion for development of effective pest management strategies, which are also easy to implement and readily integrated with other crop production practices. There is a need to redesign agroecosystem that can contribute to one or more of the following general strategies. And that the below ground, we have soil test and nutrient management, the addition of compost, and then beneficial microorganism. The first is soil testing and nutrient management. A soil test is important for several reasons. To optimize crop production, to protect the environment from contamination by runoff and releasing excess fertilizer, to aid in the diagnosis plant culture problem, to improve the nutritional balance of the growing media, to save money and conserve energy by applying only the amount of fertilizer needed. This is the addition of organic matter or compost. And then don't burning the straw. If you have a rice field, if it's burned, the nutrients like magnesium, silica, etc. is lost. So we have to make a compost for the straw. The reason to compost is improves plant growth, reduce soil erosion, allows soil to retain more water, enhance soil fertility, reduce waste, landfill, and burn, benefit soil structure, allow soil to retain more nutrient, store carbon in soil to protect the climate, builds community resilience and power, and it's easy. And then how to composting? The first, preparation of the material like straw, 2 liter molasses, and 2 liter decomposer, and 200 liter of water. And then mill the straw and stick in the iron. Mix the water, decomposer, and molasses. Wait for 30 minutes to activate the decomposers. And then spray the mixed water to the milled straw. Use the bamboo pipe to aeration. and then cover the straw with plastic. Incubate it in 14 until 30 days until ripe. In the final presentation, we have a video tutorial for composting. The ripe compost characteristic followed by bali tanah. The first, constant temperature, 40 until 50 Celsius, crumbs and dark brown color. Say organic, more than 12%. And ratio 15 until 25%, and moisture content 40 until 50%. And then the nutrient management, in order to make plants increase the growth rate, stay more vigorous, make better use of soil water, and to produce greater numbers of root, allowing more surface area for root absorption and nutrient uptake, and shortening susceptible state of plant growth, maintaining balanced soil nutrition is essential. And then this is the beneficial microorganism that use on ecological based integrated pest management as below ground. This is bacteria, for example, plant growth promoting bacteria, and then the fungi like mycorrhizae, trichoderma, and cleocladium. And the beneficial microorganism is on the first image that agroecosystem landscape for ecological based integrated pest management. The beneficial of plant growth promoting bacteria. The first, biostimulant, enhance plant growth, cause the ability to produce growth regulator hormone. The second, bioprotectant, increase plant resistance, cause the ability to produce antibiotics. And then biofertilizer, for solubilizing phosphate. This is for example. Biocontrol, biofertilizer, and phytohormone. And then mass production of plant growth promoting bacteria with liquid media uses bamboo root. We need a bran, and then sugar, and then fish paste, and then bamboo root, and calcium carbonate. The bamboo root taken from the soil in 10 until 15 depth. And then clean bamboo roots and soak with boiled water. Incubate it for 3 days. And then make a medium with a mixture of 15 liters of water, 200 grams of sugar, and then 100 grams of fish paste, 500 grams of bran, and 1 teaspoon calcium carbonate soaked in water. And then after media boiled, and then on the room temperature, mixing filter media and the filtered bamboo root water. So mix it, and then incubate it until 7 days, and we have to applicate it until 7 days incubation. And this is the application of beneficial microorganism like plant growth promoting bacteria. So we can spray it or seed treatment or like this. And then the second, we have to make mycorrhizae. Why mycorrhizae? Because it have bioprotectant. The benefit are bioprotectant, biostimulant, biofertilizer, and increase through tolerance by expand the roots and looking for water source. This is the difference with no arbuscural mycorrhizae and with mycorrhizae. This is increased resistance to foliar pathogens, increased drought tolerance, increased salt tolerance, and then increase resistance to root pathogens. The example of mycorrhiza is like this. This is the example of mycorrhiza on compost medium, and then this is on sand medium. Okay, the propagation of mycorrhiza, 1 kilos of mycorrhiza starter, add to 100 kilos of the compost, and then mix it. After that, cover with plastic or put in the sack, and then incubate in 7 days, and then the compost plus mycorrhiza is ready to apply. And then the ecologically based IPM is economic, feasible, and sustainable. First, for nutrients management and soil testing, nutrients are not waste, and nutrients are delivered in accordance with the soil needs. The usage of the proper amount of nitrogen fertilizers reduces the pest damage. The farmer becomes wealthier by using the appropriate amount of fertilizer and making the appropriate purchase so that the production cost is realistic. The second, addition of compost and beneficial microorganisms use local material which the farmer normally has on hand, such as straw or domestic garbage, which is more cost effective for the farmer. And then crop diversification, crop diversity, intercropping, and the refugia increase the farmer's income by introducing new kind of, if there is an abundance of the refugia, can be used to decorate like a dried flower. This is for the example. And then the second of case strategies of IPM is monitoring. To guarantee that the monitoring is successful, we must first identify the pest and plant pathogen, which must be done with great care. If the monitoring is successful and the proper identification is made, plus pest and plant diseases can be managed efficiently. So we have to monitor the pest. We have identified this, and then we choose the control methods. The pest identification. Pests are animals whose life activities, feeding, sheltering, and reproducing interfere crop production. And animal become pests because the first forest diversity or polyculture becoming monoculture, and the use of chemical pesticide unwisely or overdose. And then the third, pest migration, such as the Locusta migratoria. And then fourth, the difference of human standpoint, such as rats, which are a mature pest frog plants on Indonesian island of Java. In Java, rats is a pest, but are not considered pests in Manado since they are consumed by human. The insect pest characteristic, to classify insect become pest, is determined by the mouth parts. The first, piercing, sucking, and the second, biting or chewing. And then this is the example for pests. The first is pest of mice. The major pest of mice now. This is Spodoptera frugiperda. The distinction between Spodoptera frugiperda and Spodoptera litura is that the former has a Y mark on its head, whereas the latter has a ring. And then Helicoverpa armigera, the symptom eggs are laid on the silk, larvae invade the corpse, and developing grain is consumed. Secondary bacterial infection are common. And this is a pest of coffee, like green coffee scale, coffee berry borer, and then this is Henose epilachna, or we usually say epilachna, only epilachna. And this is difference with the natural enemies. Menocillus or coccinellid natural enemies has a brilliant and lustrous color, but Epilahna pest has a dull color. That's the difference of Menocillus or coccinellid as natural enemies with the Epilahna as pest. And then pests of potatoes like wireworms, and then thrips, and so on. And now we move to watch the video tutorial of this presentation.
Hello everyone. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. 17 Sustainable Development Goals are: partnerships for the goals, responsible consumption and production, decent work and economic growth, good health and well-being, life below water, clean water and sanitation, climate action, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, affordable and clean energy, gender equality, quality education, zero hunger, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, no poverty. To be able to achieve this goal, the important thing to be considered is agriculture, because in the crop production, sometimes it is constrained by attacks of harmful pests and diseases. So, we need to implement an integrated pest management system so that agricultural products are maintained in quality, quantity, and environmentally friendly. Integrated pest management is a holistic approach to sustainable agriculture that focuses on managing insects, weeds, and diseases through a combination of cultural, physical, biological, and chemical methods that are cost-effective, environmentally sound, and socially acceptable. This includes the responsible use of crop protection and plant biotech products. Food and Agricultural Organization have defined IPM as the careful consideration of all available pest control techniques and subsequent integration of appropriate measures that discourage the development of pest populations and keep pesticides and other interventions to levels that are economically justified and reduce or minimize risks to human health and the environment. IPM emphasizes healthy plant growth, conservation of natural enemies, regular observations, and encouraging natural pest control mechanisms. To implement integrated pest control, we need to organize the environment to resemble the biodiversity in the forest. The communities of organisms interacting with their environment, which is modified to produce agricultural products called agricosystem. So, in the simple term, we have to organize the agricosystem as a basic of integrated pest management as an effort to prevent pest and diseases attacks, because the IPM strategy are prevent, monitor, and intervene. For long-term solutions to the pest and plant disease problems could be achieved through the improvement and management of agroecosystems to maximize preventive action in managing pest and disease attacks. The following is a landscape design of a agroecosystem arrangement, divided into above ground and below ground arrangements. As a first step, maximum effort should be made to prevent problems with pests, diseases, and weeds to avoid the need for intervention. Examples include rotation of crops according to a predefined crop rotation program, ensuring optimal plant spacing or plant density, choosing more resistant plant varieties and rootstocks, and ensuring hygienic conditions in and around the field. The plant diversity is responsible for minimizing the economic damage from insect pests by facilitating the populations of existing or naturally occurring bean sile organisms by supplying them with appropriate habitat and alternative food sources. The pollen and nectar present in the O-ring plants are required as alternative food for natural enemies, which are the key element of diversity at agroecosystems. The population of natural enemies such as predators, parasitoids, and pathogens is diverse and abundant in diverse agroecosystems, where fewer pesticides are used than in monocultures or in elds routinely treated with pesticides. The eld margins can be converted into reservoirs of natural enemies by providing habitats which supply pollen, nectar, and other resources. These natural enemies move eld margins into crops and provide biological control. You can attract natural enemies and improve biological pest control by planting polycultures and flowering plant. In order to properly utilize the abilities of natural enemies, the flowering plants used have the characteristics of being easy to grow, easy to breed, brightly colored, and long blooming periods. A healthy biodiverse soil will support high levels of potentially beneficial soil organisms and low levels of potentially harmful ones. A soil rich in fresh residues, sometimes called particulate or light fraction organic matter, can feed huge numbers of organisms and foster abundant biological activity. Healthier soils produce crops that are less damaged by pests. In order to make plants increase the growth rate, stay more vigorous, make better use of soil water, and to produce greater numbers of roots, allowing more surface area for root absorption and nutrient uptake, and shortening susceptible stages of plant growth, maintaining balanced soil nutrition is essential. To be able to provide nutrients according to the needs of the soil, it is necessary to do soil testing. How to use it is to plug the tip of the tool in the soil you want to measure, then long press the button to measure the pH of the clay, the pointer on the soil tester. The above value indicates the soil pH value of 1 to 14, and the lower value indicates the soil moisture value in percent. The addition of organic amendments helps to improve soil structure, water and nutrient holding capacity of the soil and enhanced microbial activity, which contributes to biological control. It also found to be very effective in the management of diseases caused by pathogens and weeds. The ones of the organic amendments is compost. Here's how to compost straw with the non-reversal ventilation method. Materials needed include fresh straw cut into pieces, decomposers from rhizospheric bacteria or Trichoderma sp or Glycladium sp, molasses and water. First, prepare a mixture of 200 liters of water, 10 cc per liter of decomposer, and 10 cc per liter of molasses. The milled straw is stacked in layers 20 centimeters high, 1 meter wide, 1 meter long, and 1 meter high to form a compost heap of 1 meter cubic with a volume of compost material of about 1 meter cubic. To avoid falling piles, a bamboo fence with the same size is made. The aeration technique of composting by means of ventilation is made by placing a bamboo nest at the base of a haystack, approximately 30 centimeters above the ground, or perforated bamboo, which is bent vertically, so that aeration can occur from the bottom to the top of the pile. Straw is stacked loosely, not compacted, for good aeration. Then add the decomposer evenly over the stack. After that, pile up the milled hay on top of the pile as high as 20 centimeters, and moisten it with water that has been mixed with molasses and decomposer previously. And so on until the pile height is about 1 meter. The compost is covered with a tarpaulin plastic sheet to retain moisture and minimize evaporation and ammonia loss. Compost will increase in heat within 24 up to 48 hours, and this heat needs to be maintained at a temperature of about 50 degrees Celsius or more, and not reversed. Right compost is characterized by a constant temperature of 40 until 50 degrees Celsius, crumbs and dark brown in color, with the following qualities: C organic more than 12%, CN ratio 15 to 25%, moisture content 40 to 50%, and blackish brown color. Plant growth promoting bacteria, or PGPB, is a beneficial rhizobacteria and endophytic bacteria that has ability to controls plant diseases or biocontrol, contains growth hormone ZPT or biostimulant, and helps the absorption of fertilizer or biofertilizer. As bioprotective properties, PGPB controls disease by means of antibiosis, space competition, and hyperparasitism. As biostimulant properties, PGPB has growth hormone, one of which is indole acetic acid, which can help plant growth. As the nature of biofertilizer, PGPB has the ability to help decompose phosphate fertilizer elements so that it is easily absorbed by plants. The difference between root bacteria and endophytes is the location of their life. Rhizospheric bacteria are in plant roots, endophytic bacteria are in roots, leaves or stems in plants. How to make it very easy. The materials used include a starter from bamboo roots, fine bran, sugar, shrimp paste, and calcium carbonate marinade. Starters can be obtained through local materials such as bamboo roots or putri malu roots to attain several types of local bacteria.
The three major strategies of integrated pest control are prevention, monitoring, and intervention. To guarantee that the monitoring is successful, we must first identify the pest and plant pathogen to be monitored. Oxyachinensis feeds on sensitive rice leaves in the rice field, causing harm to the leaves as well as the stem and ear of the rice plant. Maize caterpillars come in a variety of shapes and sizes. False codling moth family. They primarily feed on roots and foliage of young plants, and will even cut off the plant from underneath the soil. In most cases, entire plants will be destroyed. They do a lot of damage in no time at all. Citrus leaves and fruits exhibiting disease symptoms ranging from greasy spot, yellow spot, small or large brown spot, black dot, and brown dot caused by Cercospora sp. Philochnistus citrella, citrus leaf miner, Africa and Asia. The larva leaves its fecal pellets in a line down the center of the tunnel, or it lies in the tunnel on its ventral surface. Lariomyza sp. Adult flies are small inconspicuous grayish-black flies 2 to 3 mm long. They may be seen walking over the leaves of host plants. Larvae and or pupae can be seen through lower leaf surfaces when held up to the light. Fruit borer, Pelican verpa armigera. Symptoms of damage. Young larvae feed on tender foliage. Mature larvae bore circular holes, thrust only a part of its body into fruit and eat the inner. There is a lot of variety of potato pests and diseases. Identification of pests must be carefully right in order to effectively manage pest and plant diseases.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention to join the presentation, and back to Ms. Niken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lutfi. And on the basis of the presentation, we may take note that local materials usage in the pest management is considered more economically by farmers, and also the importance of the usage of compost in pest management. Distinguished participants, it is now the time for discussion and Q&A. If you have a feedback or questions addressed to Ms. Lutfi, then I would like to inform you that you could put the inquiry in the chat area, and you can also address it orally by using the raise hand button that you may find on the bottom of your screen. So, Mrs. Lutfi, there is already one question from Colombia, and the question is concerning the starter of compost or root. What is the replacement we can use if we cannot get fish paste?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Niken, for the first question. You can use the dried fish for substitute the fish paste.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Lutfi. So from Colombia, do you have a further feedback regarding Mrs. Lutfi question? So Mrs. Lutfi, it means that we can use either the fish paste or the dried fish for the pest management. Okay, thank you. I'm sure that it must be available in countries in Latin America. Okay, so maybe we can move on to the next question, Mrs. Lutfi. This one came from Suriname. Can the mycorrhiza broth be used also for the newly transplanted citrus plants in the field?
Okay, thank you. This is Mr. Carmen Pantik from Suriname. And we know that the nenek moyang is Javanese, and I'm Javanese too. So maybe we can say halo, piye kabare gitu mungkin gitu. Maybe the Suriname know the Javanese bahasa. Okay, and then the question, is it possible to use the mycorrhiza broth also for citrus trees which are newly transplanted to the field? Okay, mycorrhiza can also be dipped into plant roots with the addition of water. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Lutfi. I believe it answers the question from Mrs. Carmen. So maybe we can move on to the next question, Mrs. Lutfi. This one came from Guatemala. The question is, may we replace bamboo root with other root if we cannot obtain bamboo in our country? And if so, how can we use it?
Okay, you can substitute the bamboo root with the Putrimalu root or Mimosa pudica, and how to make it is the same as the bamboo root. Like you have to take the bamboo root fresh. I'm sorry, the Putrimalu root or Mimosa pudica root. You have take it from the soil and then clean it, and then you have to soak it with water, boiled water, 100 grams root with 1 liter water.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Lutfi. Yeah, I think Mimosa pudica is available in Caribbean and Latin American countries. Yeah, so the mechanism to process the Mimosa pudica is also similar in processing bamboo root, Mrs. Lutfi?
Yes, it's similar.
Okay, thank you very much for the confirmation. So participants, sorry, I know perhaps some of you still have questions, but we are already run out of time. However, maybe Mrs. Lutfi, you can leave your email address on the chat section just in case the participant want to address question or having further discussion with you on the pest management, please. So yeah, so we still have one more presentation from another lecturer from ICAT Ketindan, Mrs. Dewi Melani. And of course, again, I want to invite Mrs. Lutfi to provide a final comment on the presentation. Please, Mrs. Lutfi.
Okay, in conclusion of this presentation, the essential strategies of integrated pest management are prevention, monitoring, and intervention. In order to prevent this, we must organize the agro-ecosystem landscape in such a way that healthy crops are produced, pest stress is increased, and beneficials are enhanced. Then, to guarantee that the monitoring is successful, we must first identify the pest and plant pathogen, which must be done with great care. If the monitoring is successful and the proper identification is made, pest and plant diseases can be managed efficiently. And thank you for your kind attention to join the presentation. Thank you for the listening. May all those we have shared be beneficial for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lutfi. And please keep safe and stay healthy. And of course, before you leave Zoom, we would be glad if you could leave your email address on the chat section for further queries or further communication with the participants. Once again, thank you very much, Mrs. Lutfi. Distinguished participants, it has been a very fascinating discussion session, and thank you for your active engagement in the pest management program. Before we continue to the next agenda, we will take a 5-minute break. Please stay at the Zoom meeting with us, and thank you very much. Honorable participants, thank you for staying at the Zoom meeting. We will see on the screen and shortly Mrs. Dewi will present before us. And I would like to read her brief biodata before she begins her presentation. So Mrs. Devi Melani has over 4 years of experience in providing training on integrated pest and disease management, sustainable agriculture, and farming entomology. She holds a Bachelor's of Agriculture in Biology and a Master's degree in Crop Sciences and Plant Protection. She's now teaching at the Indonesian Centre for Agricultural Training of Ketindan under the auspice of the Ministry of Agriculture of the Republic of Indonesia. She's trained to cultivate soybeans and train of trainers. She published scientific journals and books on biopesticides, farm entomology, pest and disease management, and agricultural ecology. During this session, she presents the integrated pest management control tactics. Without further ado, I will give the floor to Mrs. Dewi.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Niken. Okay, good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. An honor for me to can join this program. I hope all the participants in good condition and stay healthy during this pandemic. Okay, I shall be glad to answer any question at the end of my presentation. So please hold your question if you have any. Okay, before we sharing our experience, now I would like to share about the integrated pest management control tactic. Okay, from this topic, we hope that all the participants can be able to define integrated pest management, and then we also hope that all the participants can understand the control strategies that used in IPM. And the last but not least, we hope also that all the participants can understand about the botanical pesticide. Okay, let's start from the background. We know that the key of crop management in any farming system is prevention. Prevention of anything that will decrease the amount of crop harvested. Pest insect feeding on plant, for example, can reduce harvest and also destroy crops. And the key to prevention is healthy plants, and the key to get healthy plants is in the soil. So the soil also plays a role in determining healthy plants. The demand of the growing world population for food and fiber require farmers to produce more crop on existing farmland. To increase this yield require continuous improvement of agricultural technologies to minimize crop losses. The challenge is due to this while protecting the environment. IPM is a big part of the solution to provide farmers with tools and strategies to maximize production and minimize losses due to insect weed and also the disease. Increasingly, it's being adopted in both developed and developing countries for long-term sustainable agriculture to achieve adequate, safe, and quality food production, improve farmer livelihood, and also to conserve non-renewable resources. Now, what is IPM? IPM, or Integrated Pest Management, is defined as a farmer, pest, and knowledge-intensive management approach that encourages natural and cultural control of pest population by anticipating pest and disease problem and managing their number to reduce losses while permitting safer pesticide uses where justified and permitted. Okay, many indigenous as well as newly developed non-chemical techniques are available for use. IPM provide multiple benefits for society and also for the environment. This tool is include like a cultural, physical, biological, and also chemical control method. And management decisions are based on the information gathered about the pest problem and crop. Then we will use a combination of control measures that best suit the problem and also for solve the insect and disease problem. Now we are going to talk about the field scouting or monitoring. As we know that monitoring is an activity that is rarely implemented in the field. And we know that the monitoring of or field scouting in an important part of any IPM program because it helps define the pest problems. Correct identification and location of each pest in a crop are necessary for a successful pest management program. This can be accomplished by regularly scouting field. And a scouting trip through a field reveals first is what pests are present, the growth stage of the pest and the crop, the location of the pest in the crop, whether the pests are parasitized or diseased, the pest population, and the last is a crop condition. And we also have to remember that the following basic principles when we are going to scouting is we have to take sample from several areas of the field. And then the second, we have to select sample set at random unless field conditions suggest uneven pest distribution. And the last, do not sample in border rows or field edges unless indicated to do so far for a particular pest. And we have to know about the economic threshold. We know that economic threshold is the pest density at which action must be taken to prevent the pest population from increasing and causing economic damage. Economic thresholds are constantly changing. They vary between field varieties and also the crop growth stages. Using this information, we can decide what countermeasures are needed and will be the most effective. In general, a high value for crop will have a lower economic threshold, less pest damage will be accepted, and countermeasure must be taken sooner. Economic thresholds are often referred to as action threshold. For insect, an economic or action threshold is typically expressed as the number of insects per plant or the amount of crop damage. But in fact, the lack of information and knowledge about the economic threshold causes farmers applying chemical pesticides as early as possible when they find only one pest in the field or their crops. Okay, now we are going to the next slide. We can see from this picture that there are stages of an example IPM cycle. And we are planning to improve the IPM. We can start at any stage of the cycle, and the order of the stages is flexible. From this picture, we know that we have to know about how to identify the important pests, and then we have to know the life cycle. We have to know the natural enemy, and then we have to determine factor of the growing area that affect the pest pressure. After we know about all the knowledge, we can do a prevention. After we can do a prevention, we have to do observation, include like a crop monitoring, pest identification, frequent scouting, and use a trap and insect account. After the observation, we continue to do intervention. Intervention is divided into four groups. The first is cultural control, mechanical control, biological control, and the last is chemical control. After we do the intervention, we have, don't forget, we have do evaluation or assessment. Why? Because after evaluation, we will know whether the intervention and prevention we have taken is effective or not to control pests and disease or reduce the losses. We will to share about the cultural control. As we know, the cultural control uses farming practices to reduce pest population, and cultural control method work in three ways. The first is prevent the pest from colonizing the crop or commodity. The second, create adverse condition that reduce survival of pests, and the last is reduce the impact of pest injury. And now we are looking from this picture. The pictures show that agroecosystem management and associated with the cultural practices are effect on biodiversity of natural enemies and insect and also the insect and the insect pests. And crop rotation can be used to break the life cycle of pests and disease in the field. And the second is physical control. we know that the physical control method in crop protection complex technique that limit pest access to the crop or the commodity, and then induce behavior changes or cause direct pest damage where the pest is actually attacked and destroyed. And the mode of action and classification from the physical control is divided into two methods. The first is passive method and the second is active method. What is the difference? The first is passive method. Passive method is can cause the changes in the immediate environment and have a more lasting effect, although with no residual action after they are removed. For example, if we use the hydrophilic particle film stick with trap, that's the include a passive method. And the second is active method. Active method used to destroy or injure or induce stress in crop pests or to remove them from the environment, and can be classified according to the mode of energy. For example, we can use the thermal shock, electromagnetic radiation, infrared, and also radio frequency. The third is biological control. Maybe Mrs. Lutfi has told more about the biological control. Is the use of living organism to reduce a pest population. Or usually biological control, we also know is beneficial organism are referred to as natural enemies. Biological control is divided into three groups. The first is predator, organism that usually eat the pest and the size usually is bigger than the pest. Predator are usually not specific. They are usually generally, they can eat pests in general. But the second group is parasitoid, that are organisms that must live in or on another organism to develop. And usually a parasitoid is usually an insect that develop that fit inside another insect, and that they are usually host specific, so different with the predator. And the last is pathogen. Pathogens is disease-causing organisms such as bacteria, viruses, and fungi that infect and kill the pests. This is the example of insect biological control agent, or we usually call the natural enemies. We can see here the predator. For example, the common predator is lady beetle. It can control aphid and also scale insect. And we have also the green lacewing, the spin soldier bug, and a minute parrot bugs. There can also control a lot of pests and disease in our crop. And for the parasitoid, for example, is the common is Trichogramma, where they are usually used in rice field. They can control the egg of moth, and then European corn borer, and the other of parasitoid is Braconic wasp. They can control caterpillar and also beetles and aphid also. And the pathogens that we have known before, pathogen is like a Bacillus thuringiensis or BT, PGPB or plant growth promoting bacteria, and then we know the Bavaria bassiana. And also the viruses, for example, we have the nuclear polyhedrosis viruses. And the last of the intervention is a chemical control. Chemical control we usually use to reduce a pest population through the application of pesticide. And the decision to use a pesticide as a part of an IPM program should be based on a scouting program, pest identification, economic threshold, and the crop or pest life stage. When we use properly, pesticides provide effective and reliable control of most pest species. But in fact, farmers apply chemical pesticide not based on the scouting program and so on. So sometimes they apply pesticide overdose or mix several pesticides that have different active ingredients. When we use the pesticide unwise, it will have a negative impact to our life. From this picture, we know that in nature, pest population are balanced by the relationship between the predator and also the pest. If predator are removed or die because the synthetic pesticide or migrate to the other field, opportunistic pest species are able to breed unchecked. it is impossible to annihilate an entire pest population in the field. At least there are 2% survivor of pests may be saved in the field and become resistant. And the pests become able to multiply very rapidly, causing infestation. There are worse than ever before, or in other words, resurgence will happen. However, the application of synthetic chemical pesticides turned out to have negative impact, including resistance, resurgence, ecosystem damage, and disrupt human health. And given the side effect causes, it is necessary to develop alternative pesticides that are safe, easily degraded naturally, but remain toxic to the pest and also the disease, do not pollute the environment, and also safe for humans. So ICAT Ketindan tried to develop the organic pesticide as an alternative pesticide, or we also known as a botanical pesticide. Botanical pesticide is organic pesticide. They are derived from plants that have naturally occurring defensive property, or we usually call secondary metabolite. Secondary metabolites often play an important role in plant defense against herbivory and other interspecies defenses. And botanical pesticides have long been touted as an attractive alternative to synthetic chemical pesticides for pest management because botanicals reportedly pose little threat to the environment or to human health. And we also know that the secondary metabolite, also called a specialized metabolite or toxin or secondary product or natural product, are organic compounds which are not directly involved in the normal growth, development, or reproduction of the organism. Secondary metabolites are produced at a certain growth rate or under certain condition, and this group are compound is produced in limited quantity, not continuously, and only for specific purposes. For specific purposes like attractant, and then protect from the environmental stress, for protect from pest and disease, or the chemical compound we usually call the phytoalexin, to protection against UV, ultraviolet rays, and to compete with other plants, or the other word is allelopathy. This is the classification of secondary metabolite based on their biosynthesis, include alkaloid, phenolic, and also terpenoid. Alkaloid are diverse group of nitrogen-containing basic compound. This is the very huge secondary metabolite. Alkaloid is also can found in many plants, and alkaloid also give a bitter taste of the plant. And the second group is phenolic. Phenolic are chemical compound also characterized by the presence of aromatic ring. The alkaloid is nitrogen, but the phenolic is aromatic ring structure bearing one or more hydroxyl group. And phenolic are the most abundant secondary metabolic of plant. And the last is terpenoid. Terpenoid is a group compound that usually give plant their taste, smells, and also the color. So if we know about the essential oil, we know that the essential oil is contained the terpenoid. There are the table, the family that have an insecticidal activity. We can see from the table, there are a lot of family that we can use, maybe around 1,600 plants that have a biological activity. The specific is insecticidal activity. From this table, we note the family Meliaceae have a highest number of species that can be used to make a botanical pesticide, maybe more than 500 species. And then we can see here Asteraceae as the Fabaceae as the second, and the third is Asteraceae. And this table also share the information about the medicinal and aromatic plant which can be used as botanical pesticide. We can see here a lot of plants that can be used, Maybe for example is neem or Azadirachta indica. The common name is neem. The family name is Meliaceae. The neem usually used in many countries to control pests because the plant have a chemical compound to control the pests, usually from the Lepidopteran order. And this is the botanical insecticide that usually used to control specific for Spodoptera frugiperda. As we know that Spodoptera frugiperda is the major pest usually attack the corn in many countries. That as we know that we have a review from 30 plant family in South America. We know here that the Annona squamosa, it can decrease pupa weight and also increase larval mortality. Maybe the common plant, we can see here the Carica papaya from the family Caricaceae. They can also affect the mortality for the Spodoptera frugiperda larva, around 90%. And then we can see here the Jatropha curcas from the Alpharbiaceae family. They also the high mortality. And then again we can see here Azadirachta indica or neem. They can reduce insect growth, increase development period, mortality, low egg laying, antioxidant activity, growth regulating activity, and also it can have the mortality larvacidal from the Spodoptera frugiperda. And from the last, we can also the plant species Symbopogonardus, or usually called lemongrass or maybe the citronella grass. The plant usually can also to control the Spodoptera frugiperda because they have a lot of action here. For example, to decrease pupa weight and also to increase larval mortality. And the information about the plant we can access at Plant of the World Online at www.plantoftheworldonline.org or eProcel. This is the added table to represent the botanical pesticide used to control different insect pests. For example, we know here nicotine from the tobacco plant. It can control aphid, thrips, and also the caterpillar. Again, we can see here neem or Azadirachta indica. It can control many pests. For example, armyworms, cutworms, stem borers, bollworms, leaf miner, caterpillar again, aphid, whitefly, leafhopper, psyllid scale mite, and also the thrips. And this is the neem or Azadirachta indica from the family Meliaceae. From the picture, we know that neem is a plant that has been known to have broad spectrum pesticide property because it can control more than 200 species of pests. And we can use a leaf and also seed, but the active ingredients are more in seed. We know that the oil content in seed ranges from the 35 to 45%. And the active compound from the neem are azadirachtin, melantriol, salanin, nimbin, and also nimbidin. They have a lot of mode of action. They can be used to insecticide, fungicide, bactericide, nematicide, and also molluscicide. Mode of action itself, it can inhibit and interferes in groups, eating activities, growth and reproduction, and inhibit the formation of adult insect, suppress egg production, deflect insect, disrupt the mating process, inhibit laying, and reduces the rate of hatching. So neem can affect insect behavior, and psychologically the insect becomes stressed and cause starvation in insect exposed to neem's biological or botanical pesticide. And this is the example of the neem extract. We can see here the cabbage caterpillar or Croxidolomia pavonana. From the left picture, we know that the caterpillar is maybe the size is smaller than the normal one, yeah, because they have the failure molting due to neem extract. And from the left picture, in the below, we note that the neem extract also can deform Croxidolomia pavonana pupa. If we compare with the right, the normal pupa, and then we also can see from this picture that the neem extract can affect the pupa, so they can close completely. And on the right picture, we can see here that the neem also can affect the imago of Croxidolomia pavonana. They can fail to get out of the skin of the pupa. And also the imago was deformed. They have a small wing, so they can fly and so they can mating, and they cannot to reproduction, so the population will be decreased. And this is the other plant, but they still from the same family with the neem or Azadirachta indica. The name is Melia azedara, or common name is China berry tree or Indian lilac. They also have a lot of chemical content like a saponin, flavonoid, polyphenol, and also alkaloid. They have many mode of action like as a repellent, stomach poison, contact poison, and also can inhibition fungal growth. And sometimes we usually can differentiate about two plants, because the two plants is quite similar. As we know that from this picture, the Azadirachta indica or neem, they usually have a different color with the Melia azedara. The stem color of Azadirachta indica is more red or slightly reddish, and then the stem from the Melia azedara is greenish gray. And beside the stem, we can also differentiate two plants from the leaf. We can see here the leaf of the Azadirachta indica and Melia azedara. The difference is located from the leaflet. The Melia azedara, have a leaflet, but the Azadirachta is not. Okay, that's the differentiation between the two plants from the same family as is Meliaceae. If in your country there's no plant that I have mentioned before, we can use another plant with the two conditions. The first is they have a bitter taste, and also the second condition, they have a strong aroma. So in your country, maybe you don't have a neem plant or another plant that I have mentioned. You can use another plant that have a bitter taste and also strong aroma. Okay, now we are going to know about how to make botanical pesticide. From this slide, we know that there are three methods to make a botanical pesticide. The first is distillation, the second is extraction, and the last is pyrolysis. And what is the difference among of three methods? Let's see the video first. Please enjoy.
Integrated Pest Management, IPM, is an effective and environmentally related approach that integrates various types of control tactics. The IPM program uses current and comprehensive information on the life cycle of pests and diseases and their interactions with the environment. This information is used to reduce pest and disease populations to below economic threshold, manage pest damage by the most economical means, and with the least possible hazard to people, property, and the environment. Crop monitoring is very important to identify the presence of pests and diseases and to decide on appropriate actions or the right measures, preventive or curative. Overall, preventive measures can be done through environmental modification, seed treatment, soil treatment, and insect traps. Another preventive measure are by cutting the part of infected plant and using natural enemies. While curative measures are usually done through pesticide application, where the application of pesticides must be based on 6 principles and alternation of pesticides with different modes of action and active ingredients is important to prevent pest resistance to specific pesticide. Excessive use of synthetic pesticides causes many unexpected negative impacts such as acute and chronic poisoning on applicators, farm workers, and even consumers. Disruption of biological control and natural pollination, extensive groundwater pollution, potentially threatening human and environment health, and the evolution of resistance to pesticides and pest populations. Practically all synthetic chemical pesticides are toxic and long-term hazards to the environment and humans because most pesticides are non-specific and can kill life forms that are not harmful or very useful. In the end, an international trade agreement was made for the application of chemicals and pesticides in the production process, especially in controlling pests and diseases initiated by FAO and UNEP. Therefore, an alternative to synthetic chemical pesticides is needed in controlling pests and diseases to minimize the negative impacts. One of them is botanical pesticides, which have toxic properties that are easily decomposed so they do not pollute the environment and safely for humans and surrounding animal. ICAT Ketindan is one of the training institutions for the Technical Implementation Unit of the Ministry of Agriculture has developed various kinds of botanical pesticide in order to realize sustainable agriculture. Botanical pesticides are naturally occurring chemicals extracted from plants and available as an alternative to synthetic chemical formulations. Botanical pesticides are made by utilizing secondary metabolite compounds and other organic materials such as liquid smoke, essential oils, whose ingredients are derived from medicinal plants. Botanical pesticides can be made with 3 techniques. Distillation, extraction, and pyrolysis, where different techniques will produce different active compounds and ultimately have different effects on pest and disease control. The first technique is distillation, which is the process of separating components of a mixture or chemical compound based on different boiling points. Distillation technique produces essential oils and residues that can be used as pesticides. Essential oils are widely used as fragrances and flavorings in the perfume and food industries. However, it has long been recognized that essential oils can be used for insect repellent, fumigant against certain pests, and fungicidal action against several important plant pathogens. To begin the distillation process, we have to assemble a distillation apparatus. The distillation apparatus consists of a reactor tube, stove or heater, a steam transfer tube, a condenser, an oil-water separator, a state-of-set, base, pole, Bosch head, universal clamp. The first step is to pour water into the reactor. Next is the preparation of plant materials to produce essential oils such as cloves, basil, betel, ginger, turmeric, galangal, citronella, vetiver. All plant material should be cut into smaller sizes to facilitate and increase the amount of essential oil during the distillation process and increase the surface area exposed to heat. Put all the plant material into the reactor and then close the lid tightly. When ready to begin the distillation, start circulating water in the condenser. The flow of water should be more than a trickle. Prepare the heat source beneath the reactor. Eventually, a droplet may be seen flowing along the condenser and liquid will begin to collect in the receiving flask. An appropriate distillation collects distillate at a rate of 1 drop per second. Distilling at too fast a rate prevents proper equilibration between liquid and gas phases and results in poor separation. Essential oils and residues resulting from the distillation process are then put into the bottles. To stop the distillation, lower and remove the heat source from the bottomed reactor. Keep water circulating in the condenser until the liquid in the distilling flask is just warm to the touch, then turn off the condenser water. Essential oils produced from distillation that is still using a kettle often produce a cloudy and dark-colored oil. This condition causes the quality of the essential oil to decrease. Therefore, purification of essential oils needs to be done with a chemical, chelating agent, ICAT, which works to bind the remaining water and dirt that is still mixed in the oil. Some of the plant materials that can be used to make botanical pesticides are soursop leaves, lemongrass, ginger, galangal, turmeric, betel, jatropha leaves and neem. The first step is cut all the ingredients into smaller size to facilitate the stirring process and expand the surface contact of the material with the solvent during the maceration process. Next, crush all the materials using a blender. The ratio of materials and polar solvents, water, is 1 to 4. It means if we want to make 4 liters of botanical pesticides we need 1 kilogram of plant material. Then, pour the materials into a closed container. Let the maceration process for 24 hours. Maceration is a simple extraction process, where the sample is immersed in a solvent at room temperature for a certain time so that the damage to the extracted chemical content can be minimized. The finer the material, the faster the maceration process. After 24 hours, filter and the botanical pesticide is ready to be applied. Application of this pesticide is 200 milliliters per 16 liters or 1 to 3% for prevention and 110 for curative treatment. Pyrolysis is the process of chemical decomposition of organic matter at high temperatures that takes place in the absence of air or in the absence of oxygen. The decomposition process in pyrolysis is also often referred to as devolatilization, and one of the products is liquid smoke. Specification tool, pyrolysator, consists of burner. Reactor tube, which has a modification inside, 5 perforated iron pipes which function to circulate heat so that all materials can be burned perfectly. Then there is a hole to release the smoke from the combustion, which is connected to the condenser, and at the bottom of the reactor and the condenser, there is a tar discharge channel from the combustion. Between the reactor and the condenser there is a channel pipe to remove tar from the combustion process. Next is the condenser, which functions is to convert gases, smoke, into a liquid through a condensation process, where in this case liquid smoke will be produced. The surrounding condenser will be filled with water until the condenser is submerged. The water in the condenser plays an important role in the process of condensing gases, smoke, into condensate water, and then there is a channel to collect liquid smoke from the pyrolysis process. The pyrolysis process can use all biomass that have C component, cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, such as sawdust, wood waste, coconut shells, rice husks, leaf litter, corn cob. What is the pyrolysis process? How to produce liquid smoke? In general, the pyrolysis process occurs at temperatures above 300 degrees Celsius within 8 to 12 hours. However, this situation is very dependent on the raw materials and production method. The first step of the pyrolysis process is dried, cut or crush all the material into smaller sizes. For example, coconut shells are crushed to a small size about 3 to 5 centimeters, then put into a reactor to be burned, and then close the lid tightly. Next, fill the condenser with water, then turn on the burner, and the process will run until it produces liquid smoke. Combustion is done imperfectly, that is, only using oxygen in small amounts. This oxygen is only to provoke the existence of fire to burn the coconut shell when the fire is already burning, then sealed. That's why the heating is only done for 15 minutes. Application of liquid smoke. Application: liquid smoke with a dose 200 milliliters per 16 liters of water. Add surfactant and ready for application. Liquid smoke can be used to control pests and diseases in all crop commodities. Thus there are various techniques that can be used to produce botanical pesticide. In the context of agricultural pest and disease management, botanical pesticides are best suited for use in organic food production in industrialized countries, but can play a much greater role in the production and post-harvest protection of food in developing countries. Optimizing the use of botanical pesticides is needed as a component of developing food security and sustainable agriculture programs. Let us back to nature and support sustainable agriculture.
Okay, thank you. Now I have a short review for the botanical pesticide method, the distillation, the extraction, and also the pyrolysis. Distillation product, as we know, we can have essential oil and also the residue. Both of the product can be used to control pests and also the disease. And then the extraction, this is the common method that usually used for the farmer. And as we know that the extraction, for example, if we want to make a botanical pesticide, we can make with the ratio 1:4, one for the plant material for the water. So if we want to make a 4 liter of botanical pesticide from the maybe for example from the neem leaf, we can use 1 kilogram neem leaf with the 4 liter water. And the last is pyrolysis. The product is the liquid smoke, yeah, or maybe the other name is wood vinegar. The liquid smoke or wood vinegar also can be used to control and pest and disease. I will show you our research and then the chemical compound from the liquid smoke. As we know that the highest chemical compound that we can find from the liquid smoke is acetic acid and also the phenol. Phenol is the chemical compound that can cause a bacterial cell damage, protein denaturation, activates enzymes and causes cell leakage. And they can also inhibition of bacterial and fungi growth, inhibition formation of spores. And the second chemical compound is acetic acid. Acetic acid may influence the impermeability of cortical layers and breaks up cell membranes and make them black, causing the insect to dry out and die. And this is our research to Spodoptera litula larva using the liquid smoke. We can see here from the right picture, the Spodoptera larva is smaller than the normal one, and the color is darker brown. If we compare with on the left picture on the normal larva. And the liquid smoke causes mortality larva due to the synergistic effect by inhibiting acetylcholine enzyme activity in the nervous system, which result in paralysis of the larva. And then we have also the research with the rice sting bug or Leptocoryza oratorius. The coconut shell liquid smoke also can affect the mortality and the antioxidant activity. For the mortality around 80%, and then for the antioxidant activity is maybe around 68 until 70%. And then this is the application of liquid smoke against a Coleotrichum capsicum. The fungi causes of anthracnose disease on chili pepper. We can see here that the liquid smoke can inhibit the growth of the fungi. And this is the in vivo test shows also that can inhibit the growth of the fungi because of the phenol and also the acetic acid compound. And this is the natural adhesive or the sticker. We usually use as a mixture of pesticide solution to stick to the leaf surface, resisting rain, evaporation, and runoff. So the toxin or the active ingredient will stay longer on the plant, and we can minimize or reduce the frequency of pesticide application. We have a quote from the Albert Einstein. When we look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Well, thank you so much for your kind attention to join this presentation. May all those we have shared be beneficial for all of us. Thank you.
Mrs. Dewi, thank you very much for the presentation and for the video. On the basis of the presentation, we may take note the importance for society and the environment on non-chemical use in integrated pest management and Plants with bitter taste and pungent fragrance are prerequisites for botanical pesticide components. Distinguished participants, it is now time for discussion and Q&A. If you have a feedback or a question to Mrs. Dewi, then I would like to inform you that you could put the inquiry in the chat area. You can also address it orally by using the raise hand button feature on the bottom of your screen. So Mrs. Dewi, several queries from Suriname are already submitted. I will read out the first two questions. The question is that, is there a chance of resistance when we use neem? Will the neem work on pests that have developed chemical resistance already?
Okay, thank you so much for the question from Mr. West. Okay. Okay, for the question, from our research, the possibility of resistance is very small because we know that usually from one plant, for example, neem, they have a many active compound, maybe around more than 5 until 10 compound. So the pest will be difficult to adapt or break to many of their active compound. And this is the advantage of botanical pesticide compared to chemical pesticides, which generally only contain only one active chemical compound. So they are easily broken by the pest to become resistant. Maybe the answer, that's my answer, Mrs. Niken. Maybe Mr.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Dewi. So you confirm that that the chance of resistance in the usage of neem is very low because of the active compound. Another question, still from Suriname, is the changeover to a botanical pesticide on the same soil advisable when we are used to apply chemical pesticide like karate?
I'm sorry, if
Karate, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the writing is karate.
Okay. If you are used to the application of chemical pesticide like karate, is switch to botanical pesticide is the same. Okay, yeah, karate, yeah, maybe like knockout. Okay, yeah. We know that the botanical pesticide we can compare as similar as chemical pesticide. Why? Because the mode of action is very different. So sometimes if we use the botanical pesticide, we usually assume that botanical pesticide is not effective, is have a lower effectivity, but we have to know that the mode of action is very different. Is maybe in general we usually say that the botanical pesticide is have a slowly respond to pests, so they don't have a karate or they can knock out the pest. But if we know that the botanical pesticide really have a lot of advantage, then and also they have a lot of positive effect to our environment, not only environment, but also to our natural enemies that have a role to control the pest itself. If we use the karate is, I'm sorry, karate land is karate.
Sialotrina, Mrs. Dewi. Lambda sialotrina. Lambda sialotin. It's a chemical pesticide.
Lambda sialotrina. Lambda
Okay. Maybe Mr. William. Oh, karate is a name of the chemical pesticide.
Yes, Mrs. Dewi.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think karate is like maybe yeah, maybe like fighting karate. Okay, karate is the name of chemical pesticide. Yeah. as we know that I have mentioned before that the botanical pesticide have mode of action very different with the chemical pesticide, but they have a lot of positive effect for our environment. Why? Because they can also conserve a natural enemy that really have an important role to control the pests. So I think if we use the botanical pesticide, we can also to conserve natural enemies. So we can also to conserve our environment, and also we can conserve to our product to uh, to minimize the residue from the chemical pesticide. Maybe that's my answer, Mr. Res. The question from Mr. Res, from Suriname.
Yes, yes, Mrs. Dewi.
Okay.
The question from
Thank you.
Mr.
Maybe Mr.
Yes,
Res have some feedback for me.
Okay, so Mrs. Devi, maybe I will
Yeah.
try to summarize. So thank you very much for the explanation about the advantage of botanical pesticide in comparison to the chemical pesticide. So one more thing, Mrs. Devi, so what do you think about what if a plantation is already applied with a chemical pesticide and the participant is planning to change using botanical pesticide? Is it possible to apply the botanical pesticide, or you can just you can only use the botanical pesticide to a plantation that hasn't been contaminated with a chemical pesticide? Please, Mrs. Devi.
Okay, thank you so much for the question from Mr. Res. Okay, botanical pesticide, not only neem, but all of the botanical pesticide can work on pests that have already developed with the chemical resistant. Why? Because we know that the active compound, the active chemical compound is very different from the active chemical compound that usually we can find in chemical pesticide. And as we mentioned before, the mode of action is also different. So it's really worth it if we want to control pests and also the disease with the botanical pesticide. But of course, we cannot apply together with the chemical pesticide. We're not allowed to apply chemical pesticide when we apply botanical pesticide. So if we want to apply the botanical pesticide, we can apply together or mix with the chemical pesticide, because the effect will be not effective, and we will not know the effect is because the botanical pesticide or because the chemical pesticide. Maybe that's my answer, Mr. Res. Thank you so much for the question. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Devi, for a very comprehensive explanation. So what you try to underline is that we cannot mix the usage of chemical pesticide and the botanical pesticide. So anyway, for Mrs. Devi and participants, because we already run out of time, perhaps we can conclude this session. But still, for participants, I hope that maybe, so Mrs. Devi, maybe we would be grateful if you can leave your email address in the chat before you exit the Zoom meeting, so that participants can address further questions or have further discussion about botanical pesticide with you through email. So again, I want to invite Mrs. Devi to provide a final comment on the presentation. Please, Mrs. Devi.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Niken. Maybe this is my final or the conclusion from my presentation. As we know, the IPM is a big part of the solution to provide farmer with tools and also the strategies to maximize production and minimize losses due to the pest and disease. And when the agroecosystem is balanced and the agroecosystem is managed properly, pest and disease problems can be resolved. And in the end, sustainable agriculture is realized from the economic, social, and also environmental aspect. And the botanical pesticide is one of control component of IPM that utilize material from nature, including natural substances from plants to create agricultural production that is safe for the environment, free of pesticide residue, healthy for consumption, and also can increasing farmers' income. Thank you so much, Mrs. Niken and all participants.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Devi, for sharing your knowledge on the botanical pesticide. I'm sure that it can be replicated in the Caribbean and Caribbean and Latin American countries. I'm sorry. So many thanks. Keep safe and stay healthy, Mrs. Devi.
Thank you so much.
Distinguished participants, the second day of the training is about to end. The last training will be marked with tomorrow's session. Tomorrow, there will also be a presentation by the expert from the ICAT of Ketindan on disease management of crop and horticulture plant. I encourage you to attend the training tomorrow with the same meeting ID, passcode, and link. Finally, I inform that the training will be put in recess. See you tomorrow.
Bye. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Bye.
See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. William. Thank you, Mr. West. Thank you all. Bye.
Good to all. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Miss Niken.
Thank you, Ibu Siti. Thank you, participants. See you